Oh, it did. Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's go. Now, Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath, and just then there appeared a woman with a spirit that had crippled her for 18 years. She was bent over and was quite unable to stand up straight. When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said, "Woman, you are set free from your ailment." When he laid his hands on her, immediately she stood up straight and began praising God. But the leader of the synagogue, indignant because Jesus had cured on the Sabbath, kept saying to the crowd, "There are 6 days on which work ought to be done. Come on those days and be cured, not on the Sabbath day." But the Lord answered him and said, "You hypocrites, does not each of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or his donkey from the manger and lead it away to give it water? And ought not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan bound for 18 long years, be set free from this bondage on the Sabbath day?" When he had said this, all his opponents were put to shame, and the entire crowd was rejoicing at all the wonderful things that he was doing. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Praise to you, peace of God the Father, and Jesus Christ our Lord.
Amen.
May be seated. Little entrance music. Thank you, Gerard. That's fun. So let's talk holidays for just a second. I don't know how many of you have noticed, but not just Christmas and Thanksgiving and those big ones, but also holidays like the Independence Day, 4th of July, or Labor Day, which is coming up. Have you ever noticed how different people celebrate in different sorts of ways? There's some people who have big traditions, particularly around Independence Day. They pop popcorn, they gather, if they have kids, they gather up the kids, and maybe they bring in a nice chest full of drinks and goodies, and they go out somewhere into the country to watch big, huge firework displays. Other families load up early in the morning at 10 o'clock and go sweat in the streets to watch beautiful parades going by in the hot summer days. Those were fun times. And there's all kinds of different ways that people celebrate. However, there are still other people, depending on your socioeconomic status. There's some people who may not have, the privilege to be able to just stop what they're doing and go watch a parade for half a day, or load up in the night because maybe they have to work nights to go watch. They can't go watch the fireworks because they have to work. And before we get too judgmental, there's all kinds of reasons why people have to work. And any of us who've ever gone into, like, for example, a Walmart on any holiday, there they are. And that's not a statement of judgment. I mean, that's just the way it is. I was a janitor for many, many years, all through high school and most of college. And guess when you do that work? It happens at night. It was great because there were no people around. I mean, I love people. But nevertheless, it was a night job and you have to do it. There's also other jobs. For example, if you get sick and something bad is happening to you, who's thankful that there are people working at the hospital? So there's those folks. They don't get to stop what they're doing and go watch the fireworks at night, those who are on duty. And all the first responders, the police, the fire department, there's all sorts of law enforcement. And I cannot tell you how many times I sat down to eat Thanksgiving lunch, even when I worked in the oil patch, and a phone call would come. And if they call, guess who's got to go? Whoever got the call, you got to go. So just because there's a holiday or Sabbath day doesn't mean that you necessarily get to take it off for all sorts of reasons. And even in Jesus' day, this was a complicated issue. It wasn't as simple as it was the Sabbath day, so everybody take the day off. It didn't work that way even back then. And just to kind of clarify, there's two schools of thought in regard to Sabbath, which I think is interesting. Now, I'm not going to turn this into a huge Bible study, but I don't want you to be biblically illiterate either. That irritates me. Okay. There's two schools of thought. First, you need to know the Torah, the law, capital L, includes Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Everybody remember that? That's the first 5 books of the Bible. You should know those. I'm going to show it all over you this morning. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Everybody remember that? That's the Torah. That's really important business. Now, in Exodus, that's where you find the 10 Commandments. Everybody remember that? Everybody remember not? Yes. Yes, 10 Commandments, Exodus. Okay, in Exodus, we have the 10 Commandments about keep the Sabbath, keep it holy, to do your thing on the Sabbath. There's also the creationists in Genesis who kind of connected all those gods, and they were the more strict legalitarians on the Sabbath. There's more laws connected to their idea of the Sabbath if you're a creationist type of theologian in those days. But then there are also those of Deuteronomy, and remember Deuteronomy, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy is the 5th book of the Torah, and it had a little different take on the Sabbath. That understanding of the Sabbath, it is still holy, just like in the 10 Commandments, it's still holy. They were still to rest and follow as many rules as possible. But it was also more of a celebration, like an Independence Day, because of their independence and release and freedom from slavery in Egypt. So Deuteronomy recognizes, the 5th chapter, it kind of recognizes, that the Sabbath was also about giving praise to God for being liberated from the bondage to slavery. And we would say, giving praise to God from the bondage of sin, death, and guilt, and all those things. And so it wasn't that one was right and one was wrong, which is there's a lively conversation in Jesus' day, because it was a complicated issue, even when Jesus walked the earth. This isn't new. It's not new for us in the 21st century to have a complicated understanding of the Sabbath. But what was important to Jesus, this is like the 4th of 5 Sabbath healings. And when something like that happens in any of the Gospels, it's time to perk up and pay attention. It's the 4th of 5. There's a reason he's doing this. And if you notice, and I love the response of this moment. And it's critical that he's dealing, in this particular instance, a woman. Okay? And he sees her first. She's not crying out to him. He sees her. That's important. And I want you to notice, her affliction has her in bondage to where she's been over. In all the paintings and all the art, they do a beautiful job. She's literally been over. And it's a real thing even now. But so her perspective, all she could see was the ground. She always looked down. She didn't have a choice. It was like, she was always looking down. She couldn't look anyone in the eye. She couldn't look up. She certainly couldn't gaze to the heavens and give praise. None of that was going to happen because it was a hard, 18, can you imagine 18 years of this? That'd be horrible. So Jesus sees her, and the proper response, what she does after Jesus heals her, is she looks up and she gives praise to God. And in Luke, that's a really important emphasis to God's activity in the world, was to give praise to God for all the good things God was doing. And if you notice, her perspective instantly changes. Because now she can look you in the eye. Now she can look at people with respect. And they can look at her and see that she's a person of dignity. And Jesus even lifts that up. He calls her a daughter of Abraham. That's a big deal. Because now she's restored fully into community. There's nothing wrong with her. There was never anything wrong with her character. It wasn't about that. And how often do we think that people who have these weird or unusually strange afflictions, there must be something wrong. And Jesus was, with a huge exclamation, it is not about her character. It is not about her integrity. It is just something horrible that happens sometimes to people, like cancer. You have no control over it. She had no control over this affliction. And I think that, sometimes we get in the back of our heads, even when it happens to ourselves, even when we're good, faithful churchgoers, why is this happening to me? Has anybody ever said that? Don't show your hands, because I know you all have. Why? Oh, and when it gets really bad, and this is a real thing, why is God letting this happen to me? And I know no one's ever asked those questions, especially here. Why is it? Those are serious questions. Why is this happening to me? And Jesus is just screaming from the pages because sometimes bad things just happen. And people don't like random. People like to say, well, God is in control and God has a plan. Really? You think God's plan was for this woman to be bent over all those years? No. Not according to Jesus. According to Jesus, God wanted her to be whole, to be lifted up, to be a person of integrity, and to prove that she's a person of character. A daughter of Israel. That didn't change. Synonymous with God's Abraham. It didn't change. What changed is now she's able to look up and herself give praise to God because she realized, the proper response, she realized that God intended good things for her. This was not God's intention for her to be bent over all those years. God wanted good things for her. God always desires good intentions. And the proper response is always to look up and give praise. Now, how does that affect all of us? I think this is really interesting because we have this ongoing debate about the Sabbath. Well, not all of us are able to be here on Sundays, not anymore. And even though I prefer Sundays and Wednesdays to be kept sacred myself because that's just traditional, it's just not possible in the world we live in. But it is possible to have Sabbath time. It is possible to have sacred time. It is possible to have God time, anytime. I think it's important that we gather as the people of God sometime. I prefer Sundays. But when we come together and together we celebrate Word and Sacrament, together we come together, we hear the good news of what God is doing, and together we lift our voices in praise as one. Just like we did, it's kind of, I think, maybe a God thing that we did it a cappella this morning. Lord, to whom shall we go? You know, we can do that on our own. Not that we want to, JR, that wasn't a hint. But we can. And what a beautiful thing when all the voices come together and we can lift those voices and give. And that is not to say that anyone in this room isn't suffering from some sort of health issue. Because I bet if we went around the room, there's a big long list. But we also know that God's intentions is still good. We still know that God has good intentions for all of us. And the proper response is to give praise to God. And when we leave this room, it seems to me that and it seems to me that maybe more importantly, that this bent over could also be a metaphor for how, I spent a long time on this, for how sometimes we get bent over with guilt. Sometimes our gaze just begins to drop, our head begins to drop. Sometimes things happen. Sometimes we say things we didn't intend. Sometimes we do things, I wish I could undo that. Sometimes life just strikes us and it just does not go well. And then it begins to add on, begins to pile up, and the next thing you know, here we are, heads down, looking down in the dirt. Because deep down we believe, not only do we believe that God cannot possibly forgive us for whatever it is that caused all this, but maybe equally important, we can't forgive ourselves. As individuals, sometimes as a whole church, sometimes as a community, sometimes as a nation. I wish we could undo that. I wish we could go back in time and not do X, whatever it was. But we can't do that. All we can do is move forward. And it seems to me that the good news from Jesus' words this morning is he saw her, he sees us. And when we leave this place, it seems to be our proclamation is that God sees you. Especially these people, and it's not hard to find people bent over from whatever it is that's weighing them down, either metaphorically or literally. And sometimes people just need to hear that God hasn't forgotten them. That God still loves them. And maybe most especially when we know that they're going through a horrible situation. Just a reminder, you know what? Whatever it feels like, whatever it seems like, God still loves you and promises never to abandon you. And somehow, some way, when I think we begin to internalize that and begin to really believe it for ourselves, that's when we're able to forgive ourselves. And that's when we're able to look up and say, thank God, this is a new day. I can start over today. I can start over in this moment. I can leave this place and share the good news that God is a good God. And God does intend good things, not just for me, but for all of us. Even when it seems like God has abandoned us. Amen. Amen. May the peace which passes all human understanding keep our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen.